What's up? I'm May. Welcome back to Mindful May. Today's project is another coat. This one is not made out of a quilt, but more of a quilted style material. It's much thinner if you've seen my other quilt coat video. This is a little bit different. This video also includes a few more tips on how I put everything together, and I use a new method for the collar that I really prefer over the first video. And this time I didn't leave out me attaching the shoulders. So if you're ready to sew a coat, grab your fabric and let's get sewing. Today I'm making a coat, and I'm making it out of this wacky blanket that my sister found at a thrift store for me, and I just think it's super fun. Starting out with all my cuts. Again, for simplicity, I am using the payola coat pattern that I used in my first quilt coat video. I do have a pattern that I created, but in order to share it with you and for you to make your own coat, you should just go ahead and download the payola coat, print it out, and then get it in your size, and you can make your own coat. I did add 7 inches to the bottom of their pattern because I liked a longer coat. I also tend to shorten the sleeves because I don't like them to be super long. I overlocked all my edges because it just cleans the edges up really nicely. You can zigzag over the edges to keep all the threads in place and to keep it from unraveling. Step 1 is to attach the pockets. So I have overlocked all the edges of my pockets and tucked them underneath, pinned them. This is my first pocket and it looks pretty good. It's pretty self-explanatory. You just sew around the periphery of the pocket. Then step 2 is to attach the back panel to the front panels at the shoulder seam. So here I am pinning right sides together. That funky pattern faces each other. And we're just going to sew a straight line across the shoulder seam. It's always tricky to know what is the best angle to show you guys how I'm sewing on my machine. But if you've been sewing for a little while, it's pretty easy to do, just forward and back stitch. Sew that straight line, forward and back to end, and we're attached to the shoulders. Next step is to attach the sleeves. This part can be tricky because you're sewing a curved line, but the best way I've found to do it is to lay the coat open wide and then pin at where you're starting and at where you will be ending. And then I continue to pin all the way together till I get to the top of the shoulder. And I like to see how it's going to look when it's right sides out. And we'll take it to the machine. That sleeve is attached. Honestly, this pattern is so easy. It's a great one to start if you've never made a coat before. And then I'm turning everything inside out and again right sides together. I like to pin at 3 points first and then work my way in. So I pin the wrist first, the armpit, and then the very bottom, because these are points that I want to perfectly align. And then if I kind of mismatched my cuts and things aren't even, I can kind of figure that out in the middle. Here's everything all put together. Looks really clean on the inside. I'm gonna do the other side. And this time I'm showing you what it looks like on my machine. I do manually stitch a lot on this section because there's so much thickness, especially in this first portion at the wrist with that binding on the edge. And then once we get down to the armpit, I slow down a little bit more. And I also add in a couple of back stitches just to stabilize this area because it gets a lot of wear. And then I pivot my needle and start sewing down. Again, going really slow right at the end here. And everything's put together. My next step is to attach a little bit of the binding from the leftover blanket to my neckline. So I added this right here where the collar won't cover. Of course, you can bring your collar all the way to the edge, but I wanted mine to start about an inch away from that neckline. Last step, if you want, is to add a collar. I am placing 2 pieces of the collar cutout, right sides together, and I'm going to start in the corner, so all the way down and around, and leave this opening to attach to the neckline. Here it is sewn together and flipped right side out. I've also ironed it so it lays a little flatter. I'm going to take my coat, and I have put a pin right at the center back of my neckline. I've also placed a pin in the center of my collar. I'm matching up these lines, pinning the good side of my collar so once it flips out, you'll see the nice colorful quilted collar. I'm pinning all the way up the left and right side, and it stops about an inch from my neckline. And this is how it looks when it's flipped out. I sewed that on. And now for the back piece, I've tucked it under and pinned it in place along the back neckline. You could machine stitch this, but I wanted it to be hidden on the other side and look really clean, so I decided to hand stitch it. It took a little more time, but I felt it was worth it. And then this wacky coat is all done. It's not my best job, but thankfully this is the part that is hidden when the collar flips over, so you can get away with making a few sloppy mistakes here. Thanks for sewing with me today. If you like this video, click that like button right down here. And if you really like it and you want to keep sewing with me, subscribe on the next page. Thanks for watching today. I'll see you next time. Cheers.